welcome to Lucas Group's Recruiter Intel Spotlight. My name is Mandy Witchin, and today I'm joined by Bob Carignan, Executive Senior Partner with Lucas Group. Hi, Bob. Thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Mandy. Good morning. Great to see you today. Thank you.
You too. Today's topic is best practices in preparing for the modern job interview. But before we launch into this topic, if you would, just please tell me a little bit about your background in executive recruiting, your area of specialization, and then your current role with Lucas Group.
Okay, glad to do that. So I've been with Lucas Group. I just celebrated 5 years in the last couple of weeks with the organization.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I specialize in sales and marketing searches with the company, both individual contributor roles all the way up to the executive level and C-suite type positions. When it comes to industries that I focus on, I'm a little broader than some of my colleagues, but the industries that I tend to do my most work is franchising, health and wellness, consumer and retail, and then also in the greater construction and real estate industries, which might include building materials, heavy equipment, and services. So I'm probably a bit more industry agnostic than some of my peers.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that introduction and overview. Well, it's October and everybody knows that Halloween is right around the corner. So Lucas Group's theme for the month is the scary stuff. I love this one. And I know how much fear that the interview process can create. On the one hand, for job seekers, we have a lot of people who are in the job market now for the first time in years, and that can be daunting. And then on the HR and employer side, there's been this shift to remote work, and that's presenting its own set of challenges too. Given that this shift has occurred, it kind of leads me into my first question, which is in this remote and blended workforce that many of us are now forced to deal with, how has this fundamentally altered recruiting and interviewing? What are some of the changes that you're seeing?
I guess pre-COVID, back before March, we were probably seeing video interviews happening maybe 20 to 30% of the time. They really weren't a dominant way. It was usually phone calls and then, when appropriate, get people in person face to face. But now that so many companies are remote, we've seen a major pendulum swing. I mean, video interviews are starting on the first interviews, and they're going throughout the process. I'd say 80 to 90% of interviews today now are via video.
Wow.
There's still occasionally where a phone call might be done at the beginning, but I think the opportunity now that we all have, and it's becoming kind of second nature to do these video calls, that clients are wanting to do it right from the start. So,
have you seen any kind of a change in terms of the number of rounds of interviews, given that so many of them are now done on video, or not?
Typically it's three rounds is usually the average. In general, even with video interviews, sometimes we see a fourth and fifth if there's an additional person within the organization that wants to speak to the candidate. But I do see a lot of efficiency with it. And I also see that I've had a candidate this summer where they did all video interviews for a VP level job, and they never even met anybody in person until after an offer was made, which was
wow.
pretty amazing.
And it shows that the video interview process can be very effective. Any changes that you've seen in feedback or the follow-up process after interviews are completed?
I think the thing that's still pretty standard when it comes to how I'll say when it comes to candidates following up. I think it's really paramount that they do the normal thank you notes. I think for those of us that were trained in our careers, the personal handwritten thank you note was always great. The only problem with that on a couple levels is it takes, with our postal system, it takes 2 to 4 or 5 days sometimes to get there. Also, now with everybody working remote at their homes, we don't have the addresses to those people instead of just sending to their businesses. So therefore, by all means, the email follow-up thank you within 24, 48 hours at the most is definitely recommended and essential. I think it just reaffirms to any company that your level of interest, reiterating maybe some of your reasons why you're a good fit for the position, and just hopefully continuing the process and showing that you are interested.
Sure. And then finally, have you seen any changes within your niche, which is sales and marketing?
No, I don't think so. No, I think there's obviously a number of. I think it's been challenging for sale on the sales side of jobs out there. I think there's a number of roles that typically have been customer facing. So some of those customers out there aren't as likely to want to meet with salespeople face to face right now. So more of that's being done via video. But it's not stopping our customers though from still making sure they have that key talent, because their businesses are continuing. They still need to have their salespeople interacting with customers, gaining new customers, servicing the current ones they have. So no, I think things have been business as usual, but now it's more remote.
Sure. It sounds like many things have changed, but certain things haven't and maybe never will. And in an email leading up to today's conversation, you had mentioned something that struck a chord with me about putting on a consulting hat when interviewing these days. What does that mean for employers to put on their consulting hat when approaching interviewing?
Well, I think there's a two-way street when it comes to the interview process. I think sometimes employers might go into interviewing candidates and they think, well, I have the job, so therefore the candidates, got to show everything to me that they're hungry and want this job, and it's up to them to earn it. And I think that's a little bit counterintuitive. I think that in today's environment, I think candidates are much more discerning about companies and looking for the right cultural fit, in addition to the right position and right job. So I think there's a little bit of, I don't know, when it comes to the employer side, I would say the consulting is that I think you've got to paint a good picture and a story about the company. What makes them great? Why are they growing? Why are they doing well? What are their future opportunities look like for the organization? And then, of course, talk about culture and things that they do to support their employees. So I think those are all selling points that I think it's important for the employer to highlight when speaking to candidates.
Sure, just having that mindset of explaining the what's in it for me to prospective candidates.
Absolutely.
And then let's just flip the coin here. What does it mean for a candidate to put on their consulting hat? What should they be doing?
So for the candidate, this is going to be, I'll say this is going to be scary when it comes to those candidates out there that are not salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think salespeople sometimes have a little bit of an advantage if they've been doing their craft for a while. But what I mean by consulting is we go into interviews. I think it's really, really important that we ask a lot of great questions, and come into the meeting ready to ask questions. And the reason being is we need to understand what's behind why this employer is looking to hire someone. Mm-hmm. So what are those, it can really be simplified, or, what are the three key things that would define success for someone in this role? And asking that question early on, if you're a candidate, will allow you to understand what is most important to the employer, as far as, what they need from this job. Those answers will allow you then to customize and give answers based on your experience and what you've done in the past. So I tell candidates as I prepare them for interviews, I said it's so important that you create buckets of questions. You ask questions about the company, you ask questions about the position, and you ask questions about the hiring manager. And also put those questions in order of importance to you, the candidate, because interviews are sometimes 45 minutes to an hour. So you want to, if you're short on time, you want to make sure you're asking the questions that are most important to you in this first or second conversation. But I think those questions not only will give you the answers that you're looking for to understand if you like the company and the job, but it'll also show the employer, how thoughtful you are about the position and your business acumen, and you're thinking about it critically. You're not just on autopilot, just trying to get a job. You're really trying to figure out, is this the right fit for me?
Absolutely. And you took the words right out of my mouth, because it does showcase your enthusiasm, but also your critical thinking. And it shows that you're thinking not just about this job and what are the responsibilities of this job, but how does it fit into the context of the organization?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you were speaking with an employer as they were preparing for a key interview with a candidate that they really wanted to land, what one piece of advice would you give them?
I would tell them to be prepared to be interviewed themselves. And it kind of goes off what we were just speaking about with regards to a candidate hopefully coming prepared with good questions. I think the employer really needs to be ready to talk about the company, talk about the position, talk about the hiring manager, all those key ingredients, and really be conversational with it, right? I mean, I think that we're all looking with our jobs. We're hopefully looking for fulfillment, right? And that should be a two-way street. And so for the employer, they're looking for their next great employee that will help round out their culture, do a great job in this position in whatever the functional responsibility may be. So hopefully the employer can be, prepared and thoughtful about, getting the candidate excited about the company.
Makes sense. And then if you were a candidate and you could, if you were speaking to a candidate who is really excited about the prospect of an upcoming interview, what one piece of advice would you give them? You've already spoken about the importance of things like a thank you note and the importance of planning those thoughtful questions. What other key pieces of advice would you give them?
I think it's important to be humble. Humility is really key, it's kind of this balance. Of course, we want to be confident and talk about the successes we've had, right? I think that's the thing that as we answer questions about ourselves, we talk about scenarios of things we've done in the past. We do want to be able to cite our notable accomplishments and what were the results from those accomplishments, meaning how did they move the company or the position forward. But I think complementing that with a good dose of humility. Sometimes I find that when we have, we talk about the scary situation where we've got candidates that haven't been in the job market for a number of years, right? And I think there's two directions they may go. Sometimes they're real confident going, well, I've been really great at what I've done for so long, which they probably have. But I think there's a humility that they need to kind of have in the conversation with the employer, in that make it about the employer. What are their needs? What are they trying to accomplish? It's really all about them, because they're the ones that have the position. When you think about yourself as a candidate, you're the solution, right? So what you want to understand is how can I help them in that with their need, their pain points with this position. And so I think being humble in your approach and being gracious in the process, who doesn't like that personality trait in a good candidate?
Sounds like a winning combination to me, but finding that right balance of confidence and humility, it takes a little bit of finessing and some work too. And then finally, just to wrap up today's conversation, how can partnering with an executive recruiter like yourself alleviate some of the challenges that are created by the pandemic, especially in the area of interviewing?
So, like we said, first of all, we've been in this about 6 months now, and there's a lot of people that had no idea they'd be looking for a job. I always tell people I think recruiters can be a complement to their overall search process. Sometimes I like to be very honest with them, that recruiters are probably no more than 20% of your search efforts. The other 80% is your own efforts and your networking that you're doing. Recruiters are hired by companies to find great talent. But by all means, you definitely want to speak with candidates that maybe have the backgrounds that we are looking for in the types of jobs. So I love talking with sales and marketing leaders, as well as individual contributors that might work in the areas where I do most of my searches. Yeah, I think with regards to, I think the benefit that a recruiter can provide an employer right now with today's job market is there's a lot of people out there. So, and some people think, well, there's tons of people, so I can just put job postings up and we'll find 10 people tomorrow and everything will be good and easy. I think that is a little bit short-sighted. If anything, I think there's a lot more of a crowd of people out there that needs to be vetted.
Sure.
So I think with recruiters, and especially Lucas Group, we're a national search firm. So we're not just hyper-focused on a city or region of the country. We look nationally. So our network is going to be a lot broader than not only our clients potentially, but also other recruiters that might be more locally focused. So we've got a broader base of people reaching out to. And I think that we are an extension of the employer, in that we're being able to, when we're vetting and cold calling, if you will, prospective candidates that either may be in transition or many of them may be employed. We're looking for the best of the best. We're not just looking for the people that are without a job right now.
Right.
We're looking for everyone that best fits the criteria of what they want.
Sure.
So we're an extension of telling their story, and we're also going to be doing the vetting so that the candidates that are submitted to them are the best candidates, and they're going to hopefully see the quality in what we present to them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your advice and these insights and some of these practical ideas today, Bob. If anyone would like to learn more about Lucas Group or to get in touch with Bob, we will be including information at the end of this video. So on behalf of Lucas Group, thank you for watching. And Bob, thank you for the time today.
Thanks, Mandy. Good to see you.